The views and opinions expressed on this station do not reflect the owners, management, staff, clients, or partners.
It's Tuesday, the 17th day of November in 2020. Welcome to the Daily Hour, brought to you by Medical House in Lindos. I'm Jamal Hartman, along with my good friend, the entrepreneur, the women's empower, Carla Azul. Thanks for making us part of your daily routine like I did that. If you haven't already, share the link, start a watch party. Just get the conversation out there to your network. We have another good one for you today. Eugene Dean of Green Rock. Also working alongside the Bermuda Advocates for Safety, for Safe Technology, we'll be discussing the opposition to 5G technology. The Daily Play is a remember when, so a little history question for my good friend over there. I hope that part of the women's empowerment, I hope some of the women and the ladies that participate in this summit actually helped you out with your Daily Play. If not, I'm gonna have to have a chat with them, because it's not like, come on, Carla can't just be empowering you. You all have to be empowering her to ensure that she gets some of the answers right. You know what I mean? Look, she's improved over the last probably month or so. So if we were grading her in college, she's moved from a Z to a F. That weren't right.
Wow.
She's moved from a D minus to a C
minus. Yeah.
But she's getting better. So, folks, help our good friend Carl out. Very easy one for you today. And I don't say that loosely. Do I?
Whatever.
I don't say it loosely. But no, I'm happy. I'm excited to have Eugene Dean on to talk about the opposition to 5G technology. This has been a heated conversation throughout social media, especially since the pandemic, Carla. You've seen so many people pop up on videos and discuss it. And we did have Denton Williams, the chief executive of the Regulatory Authority, on last week, speaking about the public consultation going on now. And the Bermuda Advocates for Safe Technology actually having one tonight virtually. So we'll speak with Eugene Dean about that too. But I want to talk about yesterday, there was a press conference with the Minister of Transport and the other minister, I forget what is the minister of, David Birch, but the Minister of Transport actually mentioned, and we discussed it, there will be Bermuda will be introducing digital fares, right? Were you surprised that Bermuda does not yet have a digital fare system?
No, because I knew that it hadn't been in existence before, but I'm surprised that it hasn't been introduced previously. Like, it's just a norm. And so when I read it yesterday, I was like, this is news. It's almost embarrassing. But and in one context, you say, okay, Bermuda's a small island, but Bermuda is so cutting edge. I can't believe that we're only just introducing that. Fares will go up. I'm telling you, everybody pulls out a card. I don't even keep cash anymore.
I mean, from my time living in New York, everything was so digital, right? And I used to brag about Bermuda. I mean, look, when you work for Bermuda Tourism, you have to tell a lot of lies to get people to Bermuda, because we just don't have product. That's just real. Like, we don't have product. What we do have is a beautiful people, the best, probably nicest group of people that love Bermuda, but we just cannot match up. So you tell a lot of lies. You say we have one of the best public transportation systems in the world. We're advanced, we're this and that. And the reality is, when you think about this, I entered New York 8 years ago. We are nowhere close to what obviously big city, but from what I was told by a former CEO is that our budget for tourism was actually bigger than New York's, which is crazy. Saying that to say, digital fare thing, it leads me to other things like Uber, and it leads me to things like cannabis, and it leads me to things like same-sex marriage, and it leads me to things like 5G. Do these things all belong in the same conversation as it relates to Bermuda? Just, I guess, here's the question. Here's the question. Let me just put this out there. Is Bermuda's conservatism costing economic opportunities?
I think so. One of the things you mentioned was the weed. And for example, I remember reading someone would come on a cruise ship, for example, and leave with a $2,500 fine for a spliff. It's like, it's crazy. I'm not saying everyone should be able to smoke willy nilly, but going back to the decriminalization, um, it only makes sense. Like, why leave people with a bad taste in their mouths about the island? That 2,500 could have been spent otherwise, Or I remember even when I remember it was talk about a gay cruise coming to Bermuda, and people were all up in arms.
Mhm.
And I mean, gays spend money. That could have been tons and tons of money if Bermuda was more gay friendly, for example. I get it. It's always a balance between keeping the masses happy or the churches and whatever and economy, but where do you want to be in?
Yeah, I think, I mean, but then there's the other side, Carl, and I don't disagree with anything you said, but one of us has to oppose the other sometimes, right?
Of course.
I mean, sometimes we do it just because who we are, but on the other side, there are people that would say, but hold on, we have laws and rules in place. We can't just change them to have people. Can't people just respect us for who we are? Right? Like, maybe that's why people who do like us, mind you, it's much less, but those who do like us come because of our conservatism.
Well, as you know, I've spent many years in hospitality. Up to last summer, I worked in hospitality on the island. And one of the things that people were saying was like, Bermuda's boring. Like the younger ones. When I say younger, I would say under 35. They were like, Bermuda's boring. Um, the establishment I was at was off the beaten path, couldn't get a taxi. Why isn't there Uber in Bermuda?
Mhm.
Or something, because it's just like, it's things that to me are just, and it could be because I'm in the UK,
Mhm.
so it's every day,
Mhm.
that just it baffles me that it's not reached Bermuda, besides fast food restaurants, because I get that, right? But I'm talking about things that could enhance the efficiency of the island, for example.
But there's always a lot of pushback, and understandably, and if there's any cab drivers in the audience, we'd love to hear from you as regards to how you feel about Uber. I just remember I was, hesitant to do Uber, and it became the best thing. Now, living in New York, and we're going to get to some of the comments, guys. Living in New York, if you've ever traveled in a yellow cab, oh, here come the glasses, folks. She couldn't see us just now, but living in New York, if you ever gotten in a yellow cab, it was one of the most uncomfortable experiences. I mean, they were nasty, they were hot, the drivers were probably the least personable, and then Uber came along, and it was just a totally different experience. I don't think we necessarily have that problem with cab drivers in Bermuda. There may be other problems, but I'd like to hear what the opposition to an Uber was. One of the things that someone had said recently on social media is all, you know cab drivers should be mandatory for them to accept credit card payments or digital payments. That's something like, are we costing ourselves opportunities with that? Let's go to some comments. Crystal Lynn L says, we're like the most progressive place ever. Um, Another comment, we are so far behind. I'm surprised that we haven't met ourselves, past selves yet. Um, Elizabeth agrees 100%. Crystal and Al, maybe with the introduction of these things, they can lower the price to register a vehicle because it's outrageous. I see that going up because the government needs money. Elizabeth, Carla.
We are so comfortable with keeping things as they are because it works, instead of being innovative and using technology to our advantage. With its ironic, with the push towards Bitcoin and fintech. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. Zena.
We ain't cutting edge. When I lived in developing nation, when I lived in a developing nation, I realized we were behind on many fronts.
Indeed.
I have to ask this question. Can you text, not WhatsApp, can you text pictures in Bermuda yet?
Good question. I but who uses text anymore?
Some people do, but that was just a question because it's even little things like that. I'll tell you my biggest thing, contactless. So contactless was huge, huge out here. And I came to Bermuda with my card and used contactless, and I still had to sign. I thought that was so bizarre. Like it negated the whole point of contactless. And I'm like, oh, so backward.
Interesting. Talent Clark says, watch out for local fintech app from tapit.bm. Interesting. Like, tell us more about that. Is not a great culturalism. I don't know what makes sense of that for me, Carla.
She could be replaying to someone else. It's not a great deal of culturalism. I don't know. Just
Okay.
replaying clearly.
All right. I love the Lyft and Uber experience. We definitely need something similar here. Um, yes, you can. It was called MMS. Yes, he's talking about the text and pictures.
Okay. I was just
Yeah.
wondering.
I never knew that you couldn't text pictures in Bermuda. Where have I been? Probably not in Bermuda.
In the States.
This is
Satan is
why
Bermuda.
Bermuda Twitter has a whole debate about Bermuda being third. Oh, I remember. Elizabeth, don't go on Twitter starting trouble today. Don't you do that. All right, so we got enough answers. Yes, we can text pictures in Bermuda. Here's something interesting. Charles H. Jeffers says Bermuda needs to listen to the needs of customers or risk losing them. You know, I want to go back. Talent Clark, I know he just commented mentioning the fintech app, but even when we had him on, people that are in business in Bermuda, and he has a tourist like business, right? Not for tourists, but it's very valuable in their spaces. And just discussing the red tape that people have to go through. You know, I'm thankful for Carla bringing up Uber. The digital fare thing, I think, you know, we're way behind on this stuff. But can we blame the government? Because you look at it, I'll never remember. And Nana, I love you. I'm not throwing you on the bus. I'm gonna tell you what she said about me this weekend, you all. But basically, I remember one time, I think she must have came away when I was in school, and you know, everything was swiping the card, and you didn't give them your card anymore, because remember, you used to give them your card, and now she had to press the buttons, and it was like, oh, why can't they just do it? So the conservatism, and I guess the older population, has not been as easy to work with and get to evolve, I guess. And I don't want to blame that, because with education you can make things easy for people.
I hear you, but I also think it's a difference between not being available and
Mhm,
there being a choice. So
mhm,
for me, I'll use the example of a magazine. I still love a hard copy magazine, but I also love that if I want to, I can download it and it's on my phone or my iPad,
mhm,
whatever the case may be, technology. So I think that's it for me. And remember, when we grew up, taxis refused to come in the wintertime, right?
mhm,
I love the Uber concept because you can track the taxi. So
mhm.
you know how the dispatcher would say, well, I don't know, historically, I don't know how long it's going to be, especially if it was raining. You just have to hold tight. At least with some sort of system like that, you can track it. I did try the lift in Bermuda and it worked,
Mhm.
but I just think we're so just behind the eight ball.
Yeah, but okay, and let's go back to Carla said it, you folks. I didn't say Bermuda's behind the eight ball. She's saying all the stuff this morning. All right, just when you want to say that somebody was starting trouble, it weren't me. Talent said it is our app, so that's good to know. I can't wait. Hopefully, we can have him on again to discuss this, because I'm gonna be honest with you, folks. I've read a lot about fintech and Bitcoin. Like, I first read about Bitcoin before, like, the premier and all started talking about it, because someone had mentioned it to me, and I still don't understand it fully to this day. So I'll just be dead honest with you. No matter how many times you read about things, sometimes you just won't grasp it. Well, I'm not speaking for you. I just won't grasp it. So I'm honest. I need a bit more education and someone to, not layman terms, because they've tried that with me. Just I didn't get it. Look, I'm not the smartest apple on the tree. You can squeeze me, ain't no juice coming up, right? So it may take me a little extra to learn some of these things at times. What are you laughing at?
Because you like to speak your truth.
Shit, really having a good laugh this morning, folks, at my expense. Nachika Trot says some taxi drivers do not wish to use credit cards because of the associated cost, bank fees, for example. Understood. And I thought that was one of the concerns, but I think that comes with growth of a business, though. I think
But I
that comes with growth of a business. Go ahead,
but
Carl.
I also think that if they took that chance, they would perhaps get more customers,
Mhm.
which will negate those fees. I totally hear it because you have
Mhm.
the old-fashioned people that, but
Mhm.
I think if I rarely have cash. I don't know about you, but I think this is a bad time for street people as well because I'm scrambling for change because everything's a tap on my card.
Mhm. Yeah, it's interesting times indeed. Again, question of the morning: is Bermuda's conservatism costing economic opportunities? You can look at the digital fares that the Minister of Transport announced yesterday will be coming on board. Things like Uber, um, cash. I'm saying cashless, contactless payments throughout the island. We're going to be talking about 5G today and some of the opposition to 5G with Eugene Dean. Is the resistance to 5G part of conservatism, or is it more education and technology? So stay tuned. Carla's going to get to the news for you all right now. And then we'll be back with Eugene Dean from Green Rock, and he'll be part of the group tonight, Bermuda Advocates for Safe Technology. Carla, you ready for us?
Yes, sir.
All righty.
Following the recent announcement that Pompano Beach Club has temporarily closed, Premier David Byrd reminded its staff that assistance from the government is available to them should they require it. For those members of staff who are now without employment, there is assistance available from the Ministry of Labor via the Supplementary Employment Benefit and also the Department of Workforce Development, Premier Byrd said. We are working hard to supplement the ability of workers to meet the demands of everyday life and mitigate these harsh economic times. Make no mistake, we will provide every support we can. As he said, the government was committed to rebuild tourism post the COVID 19 pandemic. Mr. Burt said he shared the optimism of general manager and part owner of Pompano, Lawrence Lamb, quote, I am confident that Pompano's reopening will be met with a demand for the product and that Bermuda will emerge stronger after this pandemic, end quote. Turning to international news, as two older white male candidates fought for supremacy in the United States election, New Zealand was offering its electorate a more progressive choice, two white women. But that's just the start. When Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern was re-elected in a landslide last month, she brought with her a diverse cast of politicians that make up what is, by some measures, the most inclusive parliament in the world. Almost half of New Zealand's newly sworn in parliament are women, and 11% are openly LGBTQ. Both New Zealand's indigenous Maori and people with Pacific Island heritage are represented at a slightly higher rate than in the general population. In some good news, Manchester United star Marcus Rashford has announced he is launching a book club to give children the opportunity to read more. The Manchester United footballer has teamed up with Macmillan Children's Books to promote reading and literacy among children from all kinds of backgrounds. The project, launching next year, will have a particular focus on helping children from vulnerable and underprivileged backgrounds access books. Rashford said he wishes he had the chance to read more as a child, but his family had to prioritize food over books when it came to budgeting. From the postage stamp to the jet engine and the cheeseburger to the microchip, radical inventions by brilliant minds have changed the way we live our lives and shape our futures. In recognition of these people, you can now celebrate Entrepreneurship Day, which in its inauguration in 2010 is an annual event that honors those men and women who have very often created an empire from absolutely nothing, most of them making themselves rather wealthy in the process. On this day, entrepreneurs are encouraged to thank mentors, give funding and advice, and spread the word about how to achieve success in business. People who are not yet successful entrepreneurs might want to read the biography of a particularly successful businessman or woman in order to inspire themselves. Turning to weather, mostly cloudy with rain. The high today in Bermuda is expected to reach 77. Temperatures in Charlotte, North Carolina will reach a high of 58, and London, UK will see a high of 57. And on a programming note, don't forget to tune in to the 4100radio.com tonight for Nighttime Jams, featuring some of your favorite romantic classics. That's your Daily Hour news break.
All right, thanks for that caller. Real quickly, as you mentioned, weather, I couldn't help but notice as I woke up today, I saw that a Cat 5 is actually hitting Nicaragua and Central America right now. So definitely thoughts with the people in Nicaragua and the surrounding countries who have been dealing with a lot of bad weather, heavy storms as of late. On that note, we'll be right back with Eugene Dean from Green Rock to discuss the opposition to 5G technology right after these messages.
Good day, Medical House Doris speaking. Can I help you?
Medical House is Bermuda's leading one-stop shop for healthcare.
I found myself being a caregiver. Even though I was a nurse, I still needed help on, what was available in hospital beds and all that kind of equipment, and I knew where to go. I went to Medical House.
Bermuda's top doctors, dentists, care homes, and the hospital choose Medical House for a wide range of products. These same professional quality products are available to you for home health care.
I was very pleased with Medical House and the help they gave me when I most needed it.
Your experience with Medical House is about getting your needs met, but we also try to provide knowledge to help you through whatever you're experiencing.
Medical House is on Millreach Lane in Pembroke, where there is private parking right outside the door.
I would recommend them to anybody.
Call or visit Medical House today.
We've already sung the praises of Welch's famous grape juice, so healthful and refreshing, a truly great family favorite. So with the festive season fast approaching, remember to stock up on Welch's sparkling juice cocktails, flavorful and thirst-quenching, another celebration of the greatness of the grape. The Welch's White, Red, and Rosé are all wonderful on their own, but for a special seasonal treat, try Welch's sparkling juice cocktail in festive punch recipes, garnished with cinnamon sticks or fresh cranberries. All non-alcoholic and also festive. Lindo's, why go anyplace else?
Welcome back to the big show. It's the Daily Hour. Carla Zool, myself, Jamel Hartman. Thank you to Crimson Multimedia, Channel 82, for making sure that people who don't have access to the internet are able to watch this on Channel 82 if they have One Communications. Thanks again to Lindo's and Medical House for getting behind us and ensuring that we're able to have these helpful conversations on a daily basis. Well, weekdays, weekends, Carla doesn't want to work. And also those who are watching on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, we appreciate you and thank you for your continued support. Just before we bring Eugene Dean, and I just want to touch on this comment, and this is all of your comments are important, but I can relate to this, as I'm sure everyone can. Conservatism is depressed, and a lot of local innovators go on overlooked and undervalued, with some even abandoning concepts entirely because they fall on deaf ears. We settled for power repeatedly because it's a safe zone. That's how it's always been done, should be Bermuda's real tagline. How can I tell you? I think everyone watching this show would agree with that. And that tagline was something I experienced when I tried my best to help where I could. But it's clear, Dijon, that advancement is not what's in the best interest of some people, although it may be in the best interest of the country. So appreciate your comment. Without further ado, let's bring in our guest for the day, Brother Eugene Dean of Green Rock. Welcome to the show, my friend. You're on mute. Take yourself off mute and let's get you in here.
All right, greetings. Give thanks.
No, definitely. Really appreciate you taking the time to have this important conversation with us. It's been something been discussed for a number of months, actually. And so let's just get right here. Personally, let's speak from a personal perspective first, right? From a personal perspective, you're against the idea of 5G technology in Bermuda. Just tell our viewers why you oppose it personally before we even get into the public consultation and so on.
Mm-hmm. Well, first of all, I don't personally oppose it. You see what I mean? Neither does Green Rock as an organization. What we have challenges with is with process. So if you've checked any of the press statements that we've sent, that the first thing that we requested was for the RA to slow down, because like a scenario we experienced 2 years ago with the energy IRP, there's a public consultation going on in the midst of a community that for the most part is totally unawares. So it was only 2 years ago when we started to raise awareness of the fact that the consultation was happening, that people actually started to tune into the issue. And what we're finding in Bermuda is the same thing is happening all over again. So this is what starts to raise concerns. And this is why you start to get groups like Bermuda Advocates for Safe Technology starting to become more and more aggressive in terms of the position, because it appears that these public consultations are merely checkboxing exercises, and that, you know, the scenarios are already done deals. You know, it took a huge amount of effort 2 years ago to really like slow down the process and to turn this huge, it looked like it was like a huge container ship moving in the water. And here we are as people, like, we're pushing back on this thing to slow it down. And it really took a lot of community engagement to move it around. And so we're very thankful. I tell people all the time that 2 years ago is the first time in my life experience that I've seen public policy that's been in alignment with public interest. And so as it relates to 5G, that's what we're looking at again. You know, so first of all, the community needs to be aware. Second of all, people need to be informed. Third of all, there are a whole lot of concerns in the community, and no one is stepping forward to give the impression that they're willing to address them. So why is that the case? You know, and it leaves people with a bad taste in their mouth, and governments already don't have good relationships with communities. So it just doesn't make it any better.
You mentioned being informed, and on that note, I mean, Bermuda Advocates for Safe Technology are holding a public forum tonight. What will viewers be able to learn from the panelists as far as information goes?
Well, as far as information goes, what they're focused on is making sure that, you know, people understand what the concerns are, you know, with the technology, because I mean, we will have some elements in there that represent what the industry view is as a baseline, but for the most part, that's the general narrative that's being pushed. And as you know, with industry, you know, that's backed by millions and millions of dollars. So the industry doesn't really have a hard time getting the perspective across. If you look at the second press statement that we sent out, our concern was with the advisory board that the RA has formed, you know, that it appears to be extremely biased towards industry in terms of the players. And then there's specific concern with one of the members who heads up an organization that is primarily funded by one of the largest telecoms companies in the country. So this is another scenario where you see industry, you know, invest in advocacy or regulatory organizations, and then all of a sudden, you know, their objectivity shifts. You know, so I mean, it's the same story that we've seen in numerous scenarios. We don't have to look too far to find these situations. And so the concern is that this is just another situation where there are agendas that are not really being spoken openly to the community, and that this is a scenario that is just being rushed, you know, to address those agendas. And the thing is this, right? This is where the fallout comes, right? Because, for example, you look at the RA, right? There's a lot of, you know, very talented people in the RA. I have a lot of respect for Denton and a number of people who are at the RA, but I watched his interview with you and Carla, and, you know, he was constantly having to discuss the framework within which he and his colleagues have to work within. You know, I remember even specifically that a question was asked about, you know, what unbiased scientific reports, you know, or I guess studies has the RA been using to, you know, prove that this 5G technology is going to be safe. And he said that that's not what the RA is for, and that they're designed to lean towards, you know, technology and innovation. And it's like, okay, so if that's fine. So then you have an interview with Minister Raban, and, you know, the ZBM reporters are just trying to ask basic questions like, are the concerns of the community warranted? Is this request to delay the scenario something that has merit? And, you know, the minister doesn't answer any of the questions. He just goes on to just suggest that there's a lot of misinformation in the community, which to people just gives them the impression like, okay, so we're all idiots then. So we don't know what we're talking about. There's no validity to any claims that are being made. We're just being dismissed, like people who have no idea. And again, that's what creates like the concern. So in all of that, where are people meant to go to find the representatives for their interests?
Right.
That's where the challenge becomes. So in this scenario, BAST has reached out to Green Rock for representation. You know what I mean? Now, in that representation, we always look for balance. We're an organization that's been between a number of different issues, you know, and we're not polarized on anything. So we're not against 5G. However, right, even as Denton Williams says, if 5G is not safe for human health and the environment, then, you know, I would be concerned about who would actually support it if that's actually the case. We would just like to know what the case is. And at the moment, there's been nowhere near enough information in the community to give people any idea about whether concerns that are there are merited or not. That's what we're asking for, a fair and transparent process. Once you have that, the community is intelligent enough to make up its own mind. You know?
So, Gene, you just talked about the composition of this panel that's going to take place on Thursday.
But tonight, actually.
No, the
tonight
one on Thursday.
Oh, on Thursday, yes. I'm sorry.
The one on
okay,
Thursday,
go ahead.
because
yeah.
you have said how it doesn't seem like it's fairly balanced or representative of interests across the community. So besides BAST, are there any other people or entities who you think should be sitting in that panel besides those who are already there that would balance it out?
Yeah, it was recommended in the press statement that we wrote that, you know, we're looking for more representation from medical fields, which we didn't see. There was no environmental professionals that were involved in it. It's you know, so we just had Karika Weldon is the only one that's involved from the medical field, and everyone else for the most part is industry. And again, this is what the norm is, you know, that the scenario would run like this. Now, maybe those people who are on the panel are able to be really objective, but again, these are what the concerns are. And if people are not feeling like, right, their concerns are being addressed or their views are being represented, then just people get just more and more concerned. And that's what's been happening, you know, with BAST. BAST feels pressured now to get information out, to get their views into the public domain, because they don't see the views that they have being represented anywhere else.
Now, BAST has called for the updating of the FCC regulations, which Bermuda operates under. What, in your organization's opinion, is flawed about the current regulations?
Well, at the moment, and this is not even just, you know, concern that is shared by persons who are looking out for human health and the environment, even in conversations that we've had with industry people. The concern is that our regulatory framework around wireless technology and wireless radiation is well below par, that we just need more guidelines in place. So, for example, you know, we have no real public registry that says where cell phone towers are on the island. There are no clear setback laws to suggest that cell phone towers need to be, you know, a certain distance away from residential areas or from schools or from hospitals. You know, actually, we have a cell phone tower on the hospital. We have cell phone towers in people's yards in Bermuda. You know, so in other countries around the world, it's just not possible. So that's another concern, that now we're considering moving into the adaptation of a technology that's going to increase potentially the proliferation of wireless radiation throughout the country, when we've yet to come to terms with the infrastructure that we already have. So again, the push is more like, can we just slow this process down and come to terms with our present scenario before we start to like move forward with other things?
So I have a two-pronged question, because you just talked about time, and you put out BAST put out a press release which suggested that there will be the public consultation be extended. It was extended from the 23rd of November to December 7th.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel, now my first question is, do you feel that that's enough time? And then my second question is, when Mr. Williams was on the show, he did say that they did extend it, listening to what the press release said. However, the organization never reached out to RA directly. Since then, have you guys reached out to them, because maybe perhaps to close that communication gap?
So yes, and you know, well, okay, I'll answer the first question first. We do not feel that it's enough time. The request that was made was for at least 30 days, and it was moved 2 weeks. So we're appreciative of that. It didn't shift, I guess, the advisory panel, which is set to be on Thursday. So all the organizations dealing with that timeline still had to remain on course, but the public now does have an additional 2 weeks. So we're thankful for the 2 weeks, but no, we don't think that that's enough. In reference to reaching out directly, this is another one of the concerns that we have. From my personal experience, I reached out 2 years ago to the RA, even met with the RA, and you leave the meeting, and it's very difficult, we find, to work with a lot of kind of government institutions. And again, it's because they seem to be policed up to a point where it's like, well, we can only do this, we can only do that, we can't do this. It's always like a no first scenario rather than an open, welcoming, embracing scenario. So to get right to what you asked, yes, I have reached out directly to the RA, and I received what I consider to be a standard response from the RA, which is that, well, I guess the first part of my communications, which was all about collaboration and leveraging off of the positioning that Green Rock has in the community and the relationships we have to help to get the word out and to inspire more people to get involved with the conversation. That was totally overlooked. And just the part about inviting them to have representation at the live broadcast that's going on tonight was suggested that they're unable to do that because they're already in a public consultation and that they're not able to talk or participate in things like that as a result. That's the same response we got when we made requests to persons who are on the advisory panel to participate in the conversation. They gave similar responses about having to sign non-disclosure agreements and things of that nature. So it's like, in a time when we're talking about having more transparency and more openness, and people use words like unity and you know, it's for all of Bermuda and all of that type of stuff, in practice, we're far off. We're very far off. And it's hard because, again, you see a lot of good people, but it seems like somewhere along the line, the way things are set up, it just makes it very difficult to make progress. So for an organization like us, we're like, we're here, we can help, we want to help, we're trying to help, we're reaching out. What else do we do? So we just have to go and do whatever we can in the community, you know, which seems to be the only thing that we're able to do effectively, because the working together part just seems to always get cut off.
Indeed. Let's go to some questions. We have quite a few in the audience. James Birch, Eugene, how do you know it will increase radiation when 5G actually uses less power to use less radiation than previously proven safe TAC at their current power?
Well, yes, I understand that, and again, that's been pushed out. Again, that's the industry view is that with the, well, okay, first of all, to clarify my statement, it increases the proliferation of wireless antennas, because with 5G, right, they're using waves, millimeter waves, that don't travel as far as the waves that are currently used for 4G and 3G. So that means that you have to have more antennas. Now, what is said from the industry is that these antennas are lower powered, and because they're lower powered, then the radiation that's being emitted from them has less effect, or is less radiation coming from them. Again, these are some of the concerns in the community, because just from a layperson's point of view, if all of a sudden you go from having cell phone towers that are at least, up high and somewhat a distance away from us, to now having, small cells placed all throughout cities and on light posts and things of that nature, which is what's happening around other countries, just because the signal doesn't pass through trees or buildings and things of that nature, then the concern is like, okay, we're in this mesh of radiation that's increased, and what are the impacts of it? So again, from us, it's more like questions. What are the impacts? We're not trying to say that we understand all the science and everything. We're just here representing concerns from the community. And so our understanding is that more would mean more until somebody comes and clearly explains, based on science, that that's not the case.
Indeed. Got you. Another question from Nachika Trot here. For the upcoming RA forum, the panel members seem to be in support of 5G. Where is the opposing voice on that panel? And I think you mentioned Dr. Karika Weldon, but you also mentioned that there's no environmentalists on there.
Yeah, and that's the concern, again, that the panel looks very biased towards industry, and so again, this is what raises concerns, because we've been through these things a lot of times, and when you look at, again, the way the minister has engaged this, in the community, is almost like it just gives the sense that this thing is just a done deal, and we're just going through this exercise, and 5G is just going to come to the country, and that's going to be it. And again, that's the concern, because this is the scenario. And just to even go back to the previous question, right? So I don't necessarily have any 5G antennas around my house. I don't necessarily have any 5G or any antennas, not just 5G, but just cell phone antennas around my workplace or most of the places that I frequent. I can then choose whether, I wish to use a cell phone or wireless technology. I can control my exposure to wireless radiation. With the advent of 5G, what happens is, because now you're bringing the technology right into communities, now you don't have the choice anymore. Because as some of my friends who live in countries where 5G has already been rolled out, you just all of a sudden find antennas on lampposts that may be about 10, 20 feet away from your house. You now walk into a city and the small cells are everywhere. So again, these are just valid concerns. And I'm really not sure why they're being dismissed, because it's just kind of like common sense for people to say, okay, so now you got antennas everywhere. We're used to seeing them like way up on top of cell towers. So I'm concerned. So again, who is the organization within all of this who's meant to represent the people? Why are we leaning towards business and innovation when business and innovation is meant to serve people? So all of a sudden, does the serving of people become more important than the people that is meant to serve? That's a concern. What is the point of business and innovation? It's for people. I don't want business and innovation at my expense or the community's expense. It's meant to complement, it's meant to make our lives easier and better, to improve things, not to be cause for concern. So that's our position on that.
I want to go, because something that really strikes home with me, it's not necessarily about 5G, and it's something that I think it's become norm, and I wouldn't say just Bermuda, but something I've gotten from this conversation, and I think it was echoed in the comments just now by Dr. Maria Seaman. Decisions are already set in stone, and so regardless of how you feel about 5G. I think this should be a concern for everyone when it comes to watching. You know, I always ask questions about people on boards. We just saw controversial appointments with another board that the premier named people to, right? And
Mhm.
you have to wonder why people are put on boards or put on panels. What is their goal? And if the panels and boards are set up in a certain way, then is it wrong for people to feel the obvious that, well, the decision's already made, this is just a process to check a box? You know, I said last week about checking boxes that so many people like to just check boxes of community service to enhance their political careers.
Right.
Like, you know, something similar, like we're checking a box to eventually do what we want to do. Again, regardless of how you feel about 5G, folks. I'm not sharing my opinion about that because personally I don't have enough information to be either yay or nay. What I'm simply saying is that what I think that Brother Eugene's saying is extremely valid.
Well, when Mr. Ben Denton was on last week, remember I said to him, it sounds like it's coming regardless. I mean, he
Mhm.
wasn't being forced for anything, but if you really digest it, it seems like that's what's gonna
Exactly.
happen.
Yeah.
Well, we have another comment from Liz Simmons. Unfortunately, consultations is usually just so it looks like we are getting a say when it is actually already a done deal. There are numerous examples of this happening. Governments don't want real consultation. And I think, again, I'm not trying to dismiss anything that Eugene Dean has said this morning. What I'm simply saying is, to me, that's the bigger picture for me personally.
Right. Yeah,
Not-
for real. It's a big deal. And again, this is not me saying it. These are people writing comments.
Mhm.
This is what we meet in the street in conversations. It's the same thing. I'm telling you, 2 years ago, right? It took an enormous amount of effort to rally the support of the community and to make people aware of this energy IRP. And from an RA that's accustomed to getting 30 to 40 responses, we got over 800 responses or submissions sent in. It was crazy. It was like 2 months of my life. That's all I did. And I don't get paid for this. It's all community. So I'm saying, why do people like myself have to invest so much of my personal time and energy, all my skill sets and relationships into doing all this for free when you have organizations that are funded to the tune of millions of dollars that have all the resources and access to skill sets, right? Why aren't they being leveraged to make sure that the community is informed? Why aren't they being leveraged to ensure that we have fair and just processes? Why aren't they being leveraged to ensure that we have transparency? Who's representing people? So what we're finding now is that, right, in the absence of the community stepping forward, which again is another thing that we commend BAST for because they have stepped forward, right? In the absence of the community stepping forward, these things would just run. So that's why we're involved. We're involved to bring objectivity. We're involved to help bring clarity. We would like to see a just process, and we're encouraging everyone in the community to make sure that your voice is heard. That's the only way that we're going to be able to shift things.
All right, let me get a few comments and questions in. John Manderson says there are already small cells in Bermuda. They are not 5G. He also says, why would anybody want to deliver a service that's going to kill their customers in regards to the safety? And then James Burt says, is BAST decision already made with their choice of presenters this evening?
Well, BAST's decision is already made, and what I'm suggesting is that you get organizations like BAST feeling desperate because of the circumstances or the environment that they're having to work in. If this was a scenario, right, where everybody could see that this was a working together and that time was given and that efforts were made to collaborate and make sure that people were informed, then BAST will be able to like step down from their position. You know, I'm involved to actually help with that because I have helped to bring more objectivity to their group. You know what I mean? But they feel pressured. And what happens when you feel pressured in life? You get more and more radical, you know? And so that's the reality. BAST, and they're very correct in their view. They say that The industry perspective is well funded and well represented. The industry perspective doesn't need help from them. What does need more prominence and more exposure is the view that is kept obscure, the view that is generally dismissed, the scientists, right, and the independent studies that are not necessarily funded by industry, right? The people in the community that have genuine concerns about health and who have made, right, representation to studies that have proven challenges in the past. These are the people that need to be represented and brought forward. And that's where their alliances are. And those are the people who are, for the most part, going to be presented in the event or the live broadcast that they're having this evening.
All right, real quickly, before we let you go, two quick questions. First one is, we had a question this morning, is Bermuda's conservatism costing economic opportunities? Would those who oppose 5G be looked at a conservative group who refuse to adhere or evolve with new technology? That's the first question. The second question is, just tell people how they can view tonight's consultation.
Well, to your first question is that first of all, right, I agree with the statement. Bermuda is extremely conservative, and our conservatism is not just around technology. It's all around culture, and it's so many things. I mean, that's a whole nother conversation. I hope people are not so limited as to just looking at this as an objective because of conservatism. Again, if you go down that road, it becomes another diss, because you're suggesting that the concerns that people have are not valid. And that's the thing. This is what breeds war. This is what breeds, all the, I guess, the anxiety and the animosity in the community, because people who are in positions of power, people who are with established organizations, right, speak in a way that is taken as being very dismissive towards the community. It gives the impression that people don't know what they're talking about, or there's some lacking of intelligence in the community. So I'm here to say and to represent the fact that the community is extremely intelligent. They're just not informed. For example, I would just say this. In reference to the RA would say, and they're right, they're putting out ads. They have information on their website. They have a campaign that's putting out information about 5G. So I'm saying, okay, people still don't know. So now what? You just keep doing the same thing? Nobody's going to your website. Nobody's looking at your ads. This is the reality, right? Yes, I understand that you have something that you're doing, but it's not working. So what do? You keep doing the same thing? And now, as a country, we have to suffer the consequences of your inability to shift. And then when organizations that actually have a pulse on the community and relationships reach out to you, then for whatever reason, and it may not even be the people that we're communicating with directly, but somewhere along the leadership chain, somebody's saying, no, you're not able to do that.
Yeah.
Why is that the case? And this is the challenge that we face. Now, to your second question, tonight's broadcast is going to be live on ZBM, live on Channel 82. It's also going to be on Channel 82's YouTube page or YouTube channel. It's going to be on Channel 82's Facebook, and it's going to be on Bermuda Advocates for Safe Technology, BAST's Facebook page. On the Facebook and YouTube pages, you're able to interact by asking questions, which would then be sent into the panelists. So if you're watching it on TV, you would still need to go online if you want to submit questions. We'll try to get to as many questions. I've been involved. I'm moderating the event, so I will be the moderator. And we'll try to get as many questions as possible, as I'm sure you guys deal with on a day-to-day basis. And then I guess questions we're not able to answer on the show, then we'll try our best to get the panelists to get the information to people after the fact.
Eugene Dean of Green Rock, thank you so much for having coming by and having this important conversation, especially on the day that you're having your public consultation. Please know anything else that you or Green Rock would like to discuss and get across to the audience. The door is open, my friend.
All right. Give thanks. Well, Well, yeah, I would just say in closing. Oh, you were asking me to give closing comments?
Yes,
Or
yes.
you were saying goodbye? Oh, okay, just making sure. I don't.
30
Hey,
seconds
because
on that. 30 seconds on
okay,
that.
you see, I don't need really a lot of invitation to talk. But anyway, I would encourage people to take advantage of tonight's presentation. I hope that the awareness that we've brought to the scenario has made people more aware. You know, our goal is not to make up people's mind. Our goal is just to ensure that people are informed, and so they can give informed input. And I just encourage all organizations, including the RA, to do whatever you can. I understand that there's a lot of restrictions and it's not easy and stuff like that, but a lot of times, like, it's not just the car, it's the driver. So you might have a car that's not really effective, but just find, right, the best way to be as effective as possible with what you're having to work with. So at the end of the day, it comes down to leadership, you know, right? Yeah, things are challenging at times, but let's find the best way to like leverage it so that we can, you know, get more outreach in the community. People can be more informed, and we can have a better relationship with the community that we're all ultimately here to live with and serve.
We definitely have to have you back because there's a lot more to discuss.
I know.
No, seriously, like honestly, I appreciate this convo, and obviously, I mean, from the peep comments, you know, people just appreciate it, and this is what I want people to understand. Appreciation is not necessarily agreeing with what everyone has to say. It's more or less like this conversation to take place. Just getting the other perspective is important when it comes to making our decisions. We have to run, but thanks again. We'll be in touch, Eugene.
All right, give thanks, peace and love.
Have a good day.
All right.
Really appreciate it. Carla, don't go away, but thanks again to Eugene Dean, Green Rock, and folks, Channel 82 tonight, as well as other media outlets, also on social media. So we'll do our best to share the information. I'm going to do my best to tune in as well, because I want to learn. I want to hear different perspectives on this, as I'm not as tuned in as I should be. As I should be, not as others, but as I should be, because Carla didn't know any. Neither. I'm about to throw her on the bus with me. Here's the daily play today. Since we're talking about technology, now known as One Communications Limited, what year was Bermuda Digital Communications Limited, parent company of Cell One, founded?
1997.
Is that your final answer?
Yes. Then it's 98, because I got my first cell phone from them and I graduated from uni. So I gave them a year because I graduated in 98. It's 98.
So it's here's the thing. Depending on where you want to get your answer from. Here's the thing. Founded in 1998, One Communications Limited, formerly Keytech. That was M3. But founded in 1999, Cell One, which was Bermuda Digital Communications. So depending on how I ask the question, you're not wrong. Depending on how I ask it. But
just say you are right. I just want to hear you say that.
Anyway, give me some inspiration, lady. By the way, while I was just getting the inspiration, folks, if you haven't already, please like and follow our Facebook page, our Twitter page, our Instagram page, as well as subscribe to our YouTube channels. Ensure that you do that. What you got for us, Carla?
Anything is possible when you have the right people there to support you. Misty Copeland.
Is that the ballerina?
Yeah, she's an athlete of some sort. I want to say ice skater, but
yeah, probably. Yeah, I know she does something with her toes and feet. Yeah. Alrighty, cool. Any final words before we head out?
Just everyone have a beautiful day, and I don't know, just spread some love.
Yeah, thanks again to Linda's Medical House, Channel 82, for making sure that we're able to do this for you. Again, make sure you like our Facebook, follow us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and ensure that you subscribe on, I was right, ballerina, on our Twitter page as well. We'll be back tomorrow. More important conversations. We'll actually end the week with Dr. Karika Weldon as well, talking about the vaccine. So you don't want to miss that. On that note, you know what time it is. We appreciate you. We love you. And we thank you for making us part of your daily routine. If all goes well, we'll be back to do this again tomorrow with another important conversation.